Okay, it is time to bring our next speaker to the stage. Born in South India, he came to the United States to fulfill his potential and to realize his American dream. Through teaching and facilitating seminars, he has made a positive difference in the lives of tens of thousands of people. Corporations and organizations around the world benefit from his enthusiastic style of communication and his positive attitude. With a business management degree and a really rich international background, he really understands the ever-changing cultural climate in the corporate world. We are so pleased to have him with us. Please help me welcome to the stage, Mr. Krish Dhanam.
Thank you for that warm welcome, which I so richly deserve, but so seldom get. How many of you have figured out through perceptive intuition that I'm not a native of Texas? Okay, we have a semi-alert group here today. Owing to the fact that I'm originally from a different country, and owing to the fact that we may have some communication problems, I want to set the parameters right. So raise your right hand for me like this. Go ahead. America's universal symbol for fantastic or absolutely nothing. Now bring it down and put it on your chin. For those of you who missed, the chin is this pointed thing at the end of the face. And I know I have my work cut out for me. Whether you realized it or not, what you did was react to that which you saw instead of respond to that which you believe. Reaction is based on life's possibles. Response is based on your permissibles. Right about now, a good percentage of you have a perception of me. You're saying to yourself, he's from India. He's probably a doctor. Few of you are convinced I'm an engineer, and 3 of you are pretty sure I own a motel. And all of you are entitled to your own perception. In the time we have together, I want to take you through a narrative called Searching for Hope in Turbulent Times. Being all that you can be, doing all that you can do for yourself, and having all that life has to offer. The first step in this journey is to accept something called genuine leadership. Most people wake up in the morning, stand in front of the mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, do I have a prayer at all?" If the mirror ever looked back at you and said, "With that kind of hairdo, go back to bed, listen to the mirror." If you walk out in this world looking like the picture on your driver's license or like you've been weaned on a pickle, ain't nobody going to treat you like a glamour shot. If you're happy, tell your face. The year is 1775. The date is the 23rd of March. The location is the St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. The audience is the House of Burgesses. The occasion is the Second Congress. And a man stood up after many had talked about patriotism and hope, and here's what he said. "Should I hold my opinion at such a time for fear of giving offense, I would consider myself in treason towards my country and as an act of disloyalty to the majesty of heaven, whom I revere above all earthly kings. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has already begun. The next gale that sweeps in from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Why stand we here idle? Our brethren are already in the field. What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? For is life so dear or peace so sweet that it be purchased at the price of the chains of slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what path others might take, but for me, give me liberty or give me death." And an entire nation marched forward. If you want to search for hope in these turbulent times, we need genuine leadership like the likes of Patrick Henry. And maybe in this auditorium, a place like this, a time like now, a person like you can stand in front of that mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, here I am, what's my call?" From the mouth of a legal immigrant across the celestial shore to this hallowed hall, take this to the bank. If you woke up this morning and were privileged enough to call this great and glorious land home, you have already won. If you as a nation don't do anything for the next 500 years, the country that comes in second will wish it were you. People say, that's not fair. You've been on both sides. You know which side the grass is greener. I have been on both sides. There ain't no grass on the other side. Someone asked me one time, how poor were you? We were so poor, we go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, lick other people's fingers. There's poor and there's poor. We was poor. We didn't have tracks to be on the other side of. Now we had running water. If you needed it, you ran and got it. And that's not reasonably far from the truth. My mother was a child bride, and my father studied under a streetlight. When I landed in this country with $9 in my pocket in 1986, I knew if you accepted the opportunity to claim genuine leadership, the world's going to be your oyster. The next part of this narrative is to restore relationships. Ladies, I'm going to excuse you from this part. Dads, this is for you. God has given you women an opportunity and a privilege to love and nurture like no other creature on earth. But guys, we have missed the boat. Dads, as an itinerant father one to another, let me share this with you. Please, do not let your children walk around with a hole in their heart where your blessing should be. Bless your children. I have an affirmation with my son wherever I am in the world. Son, you're mine and I love you. You're terrific and I'm proud of you. And he repeats it to me. Every so often I say to him, son, I may never gather diamonds. I may never amass gold. My colleagues may consider me a failure when my business life is told. But if you can grow up godly, my boy, I'll be glad. For I know I'll have been successful as your dad. Bless your children. People often ask me, do you give any other relationship advice? 2 bits. Marriage is grand, divorce 100 grand. Someone asked me one time, how often should you tell your wife you love her before somebody else does? The next part in this journey is to seek amicable partnerships. For those of you who are still tracking with me, the next bit may throw you off balance. Some of you may be downright offended by what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, political correctness will be the death of this nation. You want to build partnerships for the first time in human history. The boundaries are lowered to the point where every one of us have an entry point. You can start right here and make a relationship with someone in Uzbekistan all the way in India or Uruguay. But the goal should be amicable partnerships that are built on the premise that you understand cultures for what they represent. You identify heroes for what they stood for. You look at cultures and the evolution of cultures by what liberated them, their primary exports, their principal imports. But you have to do this from a study standpoint. If you do it from the standpoint of any kind of legality, you're going to fail. 7 billion people will walk this planet during your lifetime. There is not another just like you. You're unique in every attribute, and so are the other people. Folks, there's only one time in this world where everybody's going to say nice things about you. You flat off your back looking up. The pastor looking down saying, you the man. Right now you're the dead man, but you the man. At that point in your life, you can make one of only 2 statements: I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. I've traveled to 53 countries in this world, and I've seen one thing that everybody on planet Earth wants, and it is the opportunity to interact, but it has to begin with the desire to build amicable partnerships. The next component is to take complete ownership. Complete ownership of the moment. In Texas, we call this the dead armadillo syndrome. I don't know how many of you have ever seen a live armadillo. I've lived in Texas 24 years. I've yet to see a live armadillo. They're always dead in a 70-mile-an-hour speed zone, and I'm wondering why armadillos occasionally don't have a meeting like this and say, dude, Dad died here. Mom died here. Everybody we know died right here. Let's find a school zone. Sometimes before you speed up, you have to slow down. And complete ownership begins with that belief that gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions, anger the most destructive. T. Lawrence put it this way: all men dream, but not equally. Those that dream in the dark, dusky recesses of their mind wake by day to find that it was but vanity. But those that dream with their eyes open, pay attention to them, for they will change the world. And the only way you can dream with your eyes open is if you're grateful for yesterday and hopeful for tomorrow. Eric Hoffer said, in times of change, it is the learners who will inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. Our goal in this journey is not to be on the go, it's to be on the grow. Take complete ownership of the moment and understand that privilege and opportunity are going to wait for you. But remember this, folks, you are going to get your nose bloodied. You are going to fall down, and it's okay. As my mentor and hero Zig Ziglar put it many, many times, failure is an event. It has never been a person. You can fail at something. You cannot fail as someone. God loves you too much. He doesn't sponsor junk. And finally, effective stewardship becomes the last part of our narrative, effective stewardship. When you look at effective stewardship from the standpoint of a formula called how do you glow? See, give more than you have if you want to be an effective steward if that's what's been given to you. Give more than you have. Li Ka-shing was a Chinese businessman, and he built his financial empire by financing companies that were undercapitalized but had great products. And he taught his sons this principle. He said, if the going rate of acquisition of a company is 10 or 11%, but you can get 12 or 13% because you're the major financier, take 8 or 9% because 8 or 9% of a thriving business is better than 11 or 12% of a struggling one. Always learn to give more than you have. The second part of being an effective steward is leave more than you take. Leave more than you take. I remember having the privilege of meeting Mother Teresa in 1994. I took a donation from Dallas, Texas to her ashram in Calcutta, $500, a lot of money back then. One of the most endowed charities in the world, the Missionaries of Charity. Here was a woman who had picked up the dying and the destitute on the streets of Calcutta, bent at the waist, serving humanity for 6 decades. She could have spit on my $500 check. But I had an ego that was so huge at that time that I gave her the check and immediately demanded a picture. Because I wanted something for posterity, digital posterity. If I put a picture of a future saint in my office, all the buddies and budettes would go, "You the man too. You're next to a saint, you probably a saint. Get a little halo adjustment." I remember telling Mother Teresa that I wanted a picture, and she said, "I don't do this for publicity." I do. But when I left her ashram, I had no picture, but instead she handed me 10 envelopes. What are these, pray tell? These are letters of encouragement to my sisters who man the hospices of AIDS in Washington and Chicago, San Francisco and New York. These are women who have taken vows of ordination so deep and decadent in the world of poverty. I want you to take these letters to encourage them. My fickle mind is thinking, I just gave you $500. I don't have a picture, and I'm getting stiffed for another $370. But I came to America and mailed those letters knowing that that plane wasn't going down. I was carrying holy cargo. But I came to Dallas and I wrote Mother Teresa a letter. Dear Mother Teresa, thank you for the privilege of allowing me to be a messenger in your Great Commission. And she sent me a picture. But on the back side of that picture was where leave more than you take became evident in my young life as a salesperson. She said, Krish, say yes to the least of humanity. By picking up those most deserving in the eyes of a loving God, you will have participated in the greatest good of all. And that was the day my desire was born to give something back to my nation. And I started a foundation, and 5 times a year I travel to India and put on events like this where I don't charge anybody anything. Leave more than you take. The O stands for offer praise and admiration to the inner circle. We treat a $5 dog and a $3 cat better than we will our inner circle. We'll treat total strangers with absolute joy, but we won't offer praise to the inner circle. I've said it in every arena I've had the privilege of speaking, and I do this quite a bit. 300,000 people plus a year get the same information. If it wasn't for the bride that God placed in my life all those years ago is a blessing, who prayed for me every night on her knees and cheerled me every day of disappointment in my life, I would not be your speaker today. Offer praise to the inner circle. It is important. And the W in our final part of our GLOW formula in effective stands for whose applause matters. We live in a fickle society. I remember reading John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, and he talks about a point when Pilgrim comes to a place called Hesitation Hill, and he says allegorically, this hill so high I covet to ascend, its difficulty will not me offend. For I perceive the way to life lies here, come pluck up heart, let's not fret nor fear. For better right though difficult the way to go, than easy though wrong where the end is woe. The right way to do it is understand whose applause matters. Now you have to have a thick hide for this, so I'll give you two illustrations of how do you unveil this. The first is the humorous side of whose applause matters. See, when I'm done here, some of you are going to like me because I'll have motivated you. Some of you are going to dislike me because I'll have knocked you off balance. And some of you are writing down my jokes, which you're going to steal and use as your own. That's despicable. But I can't do anything about it. I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport standing behind a lady who had already arrived. She was a primetime celebrity. She was being a total nuisance in front of the gate check agent. Have you ever noticed that people who want to be rude, crude, mean, and nasty are always rude to the only person in the airport who can't fly a plane? So this exchange was going on about producing an ID. And I know most of us don't have an ID that is our most flattering picture, so she was reluctant because she had already arrived. And this exchange went back and forth. Don't you know who I am? No, I don't. Ma'am, you need to produce your ID. Don't you know who I am? No, duh, 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 duh. So I tapped the celebrity on the shoulder and said, ma'am, all of us celebrities have to show our ID. She said, who are you? I said, Gandhi. If someone has to tell you who you are, you're not. Whose applause matters has two components to it. If you're marching to a drummer where the applause is fickle and it's self-serving, that's flattery, and it's going to leave you empty. The story is told of a violinist who had delivered a virtuoso performance to an audience of this greater magnitude. When he had played the last note, he stood up, and as he stood up, the audience stood with him. They started to applaud, which broke into a reverberated crescendo that enveloped that entire Colosseum. But gingerly, the violinist retreated. He peered back one of the panels of the curtain and went back. The handlers tried to push him back on stage, saying, you need to get back out there and take a bow or do. They are clamoring for an encore. He said, I'm not going to do it. Instead, he held the handler by the hand and took him to the far end of the stage. He pulled back the last panel and he asked the handler to look in row 2, seat 3. He says, there's one man who's not clapping. He's not standing. He's actually sitting, and he is nodding his head in disapproval. That's my teacher. Whose applause matters? What profiteth the man? Gain the whole world, lose his soul in the process. See, when you understand the formula of genuine leadership, you understand restored relationships, amicable partnerships, complete ownership, and effective stewardship. And you learn to glow in this process, some amazing things will begin to happen. But let's bring it all together. How do you live life by putting a little pep in your step, a little bounce to your ounce? I was in West Palm Beach, Florida. Obviously not dressed in a suit. I'd done a seminar for a Fortune 30 company and I was flying higher than a kite. I'm standing outside an airport hotel waiting for the shuttle that would pick me up in the lobby and take me to the airport. And as I was standing there minding my own business, living the dream, I noticed the shuttle driver was running late, so I picked up my bags and put them in the van, which was mistake number 1. The lady standing next to me looked like she'd fallen asleep in a salad bar. She had the hat with the whole fruit number working. She used her nose, which doubled as a pointer, and asked me to put her bags in the van, which I did. Baggage handling is easy. You just lift. My daddy taught me a long time ago, be it a job, big or small, do it well or not at all. Your word is your bond. If your word's no good, you're no good. At the end of that, the gentleman standing next to her wanted to get involved in this little immigrant episode. So he asked me to put his bags in the van, which I did. Now, folks, I just got done bragging on this country. I called it the last bastion of freedom and opportunity, the only Eden this side of heaven. And most of you know what I did next. I went for the tip. I put my hand out in front of the gal. She gave me $1 and change. I put my hand out in front of the guy. He gave me $1 and change. They were ignorant. I made $3. What a country. When I got in the van, the man said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "You're not getting your money back." At which point he said the words that make the story tellable. He said, "I wish all my employees had your disposition." America, that's what it's about, disposition. I've traveled the world, the 7 seas. I've been on my highs and on my knees, but of all the groups I've spoken to, the most humbled I felt was my time with you. I'm Anila's husband and Nick's dad saying, God bless you.